All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Will Walker. I'm a legislative liaison for Gateways Community Services. My peer Amber Melo was on here with me. We're both co-legislative liaisons. So let me see if I can share my screen. Let me see, share. And we have a slide deck. I'm going to try to get through it. First of all, please acknowledge, can you guys see this slide deck?
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
Kelly,
good.
one of your
All
best
right.
advocates.
All right, thank you. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to try to get through the slides in 30 to 40 minutes, okay, to leave plenty of questions for people afterwards because there's a bit of concern. Okay, so now, there we go. So focus and goals for this presentation. We're going to focus solely on the New Hampshire state budget as it relates to our space. Okay, so other things that people are concerned about, we're not going to go talk about other legislative things happening locally, statewide, or even federally. We're not going to go into. We're going to really focus on the state budget, and the goal is to give you an overview of where the budget stands today, help you develop your story for how you can advocate for yourself, and encourage you to contact your New Hampshire state senators. Okay, and just because we have a few slides, and I want to leave plenty of room for question and answer at the end, just please wait for the end to ask questions. Okay, so the overall budget process. Uh, this is just a high-level overview of how the budget comes to be. Every 2 years, the New Hampshire State Legislature works through a biennium budget. They started last year for the fiscal years coming up for fiscal year 26 and 27. The agencies are requested by the governor to put a request together. What do you need for your budget in the coming biennium? And that's this area over here. If you can, there we go. Okay, so they submit it to the governor at the end of September, beginning of October. The governor then takes that budget and develops her recommendations based upon what the agencies have requested. The agency's request has two components to it. It has an efficiency budget and it has additional prioritized needs. The efficiency budget is what they need to meet their current obligations. And the additional prioritized needs are things that, oops, something, I was distracted by something clicking on my screen. Okay, so the additional prioritized needs are things that the agency sees as things that will be necessary to take on and spend money on in the coming biennium. And I'll get to those in a few minutes. Okay, so the governor looks at both of those and comes up with her recommendations. Then the governor announces those recommendations on or before February 15th. She did it February 13th this year. And she hands it to the House. And the House takes a look at this budget and says, okay, what can we do? Can we make this thing real, or does something need to be changed? And the changes typically are based upon input from the Ways and Means Committee. The Ways and Means Committee says, you know what? The governor wants to spend this much money, but the state is only going to bring this much in revenue. And there's a gap. So we got to adjust that. We got to adjust the budget to fulfill that gap. And so then the House goes through that process. They pass it off to the Senate. And then the Senate looks at that and makes their changes. They actually have their own Ways and Means Committee that looks at their estimated revenues. And then the Senate comes up with typically a different budget. And then after that, the House and Senate sit down together and say, okay, let's do a committee of conference. The committee of conference is where they both agree on, all right, what can we actually come up with? You guys came up with this, we came up with that. Let's do something that we can actually both agree upon. They pass that off to the governor by June, and the governor will approve or veto the budget. I won't go into what happens when the governor vetoes the budget, but I will say at a very high level, what it will be is a continuing resolution where they typically will say, let's operate on the existing budget plan from the previous biennium, and we're going to come up in some short period of time, 6 months or so, with a budget that we can actually work with. Okay, so where are we now? Let me see. There we go. We're here. Okay, so we are at the spot where the House has presented their budget to the Senate, and the Senate is now going through the process of developing their budget. Okay, so that's where we are right now, and I'll get to this in a little bit more detail on the next slide. Okay, so what did the House come up with? Well, the agency made these requests, right? They made an efficiency budget request and an additional prioritized needs request for their budget. The efficiency budget funded family support services, early support services, choices for independence, in-home supports, developmental disabilities, and the ABD waivers. They also made additional prioritized needs requests as follows. The first one is the important one. This is the wait list. This is where we anticipate 278 people coming into the system in the coming biennium. And you would think that should be an efficiency budget item, but the efficiency budget is to meet your existing and current requirements. And the wait list is anticipating people coming into the system. So because it's anticipated and they're not there yet, it has to be done as an APN or additional prioritized needs request. The agency also requested additional room and board funding, which we'll go to in a few slides, additional rate increases for Medicaid rates, recreational funding to help people engage in community activities, and some additional support for early supports and services. So the governor got this agency request in late September, early October, and she went through this and she came up with the following, right, in the middle here. She said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to meet your efficiency request. No, I'm not going to cut anything out of that. I'm going to meet it. And I'm going to actually fund the wait list. I'm going to give you full funding for the 278 people expected to enter this system. But what you're not going to get are these APNs for room and board, rate increases, recreational funding, and early supports. And I'll get to those in some coming slides. So then the House gets this. And well, actually, before I move on, this was a very good thing from Governor Ayotte. She supports our space well, okay? And she, even in press releases, she comes out and continue to support for us, okay? So this, even though this may seem like a lot of red here, she's actually a very strong supporter for our space. Okay, so she passes this recommendation onto the House. And the House Ways and Means Committee comes back and says, you know what? The governor's budget is $800 million over. Okay, you guys have to cut $800 million from the governor's budget. So it was a very, very hard task. And the House was asked to do this budget, come up with a balanced budget in a very short period of time. So what they came up with was, well, we're going to cut all the APNs, right? We're not going to fund the wait list. And we're going to do an additional 3% Medicaid rates cut. And we're going to do something called the back of the budget cut on top of DHHS, which means DHHS, in addition to all those other things, we're also going to cut you $46 million. And you guys figure out what you're going to do about that, right? We're not going to tell you where to cut it. You're just not going to have $46 million. Now, this budget is bad for us. But the thing is, even the committee that came up with this budget recognizes that it is a bad budget. They do not feel good about this. And I can't give the exact quote, but the chair of the finance committee that was in charge of developing this said, I really hope the Senate can do better for this. All right, we know this is not what we want, and we hope that the Senate can do better here. Okay, so this is where we are. So what's next? Well, what's next is the Senate hearing, right? So this is the Senate Finance Committee deciding what they want to do with a budget. And now is the time for us to really advocate strongly. And we can advocate by developing your story and then contacting your senators either through text or email or calling them and attending the testimony or giving testimony at the finance hearing on May 6th. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more. Let's talk about developing your story. Okay, so some of you have done a very good job. I see some familiar names on here, and you're fantastic at developing your story. But let's talk about what I think about when I develop my story. The thing is, personal impact is the most effective here. Okay, so you want to come in and say, how does a budget impact me? We have people like Sandy. We have CEOs of the area agencies, people that are directors of the provider agencies and so on, that can give some higher level impact and overview of things. As families, we want to come up and we don't want to educate about those things. We want to educate about what is the personal impact on me? How is it going to change my life? So the things that when you do this, the important things to remember are you ask for things that are on topic and actionable. Okay, so you want to talk about budget things here in the budget hearing, right? You don't want to talk about other policy changes somewhere else. You want to talk about things that are related to the budget and things that the Senate can control. Okay. The other thing that's important is that this is a nonpartisan space, regardless of what your political party is, if you have one or if you have strong feelings about one or the other. Our space truly is nonpartisan. Okay, so there's little room here for attacking one part or the other. And as a matter of fact, coming out and attacking one party or the other is probably not going to be in your favor. It's probably going to go against you. Okay, so think about this as being a nonpartisan space. And finally, be respectful. I know this is a very, very hard space, right? We're talking about our lives here and our loved ones' lives, right? This is very, very serious. And we see something like these cuts coming down, and it's hard not to take it personally because we can think, wow, they're really out and they're doing bad things to me. But the thing you can do is be on task, right? Or be on topic, have an actionable request, and do it in a respectful way. Okay, so let's talk about the areas that are some of the highest priority areas in the space. And you may have ones that are more higher priority to you in your specific thing, but in general, these are what we've come up with. And these have been developed by looking at the budget numbers themselves. I've generated 1 million spreadsheets and looked at numbers up and down. And these numbers from the spreadsheets help support these as being very high priority items. Okay, so the 3% Medicaid rates cut. Most of our programs in our space have a Medicaid component, and the Medicaid rates are the things that we get for reimbursement for paying for components like service coordination, wages for our direct support professionals, respite care, basically your entire service plan. And the 3% rates cut, even though 3% seems small, it comes out to about $62 million from the budget. And it can result in a reduction in services. It can result in increased workforce shortage problems because people need to live. So when you think about these things from your personal standpoint, think about the impact on you. Okay, what supports do you get today, and how are they helpful? Okay, do you get supported employment? Do you get day services, transportation, respite, and so on? Now imagine that they were reduced. And if there's a reduction in services, what are you going to be prepared to decide on what you have to give up? All right, and you may see fewer direct support professionals. And are you waiting for a DSP right now for your service plan? What if it's going to take even longer to find someone? Or what if your existing DSP has to leave because they cannot afford to live? They need to find a job somewhere else. And then there's also, not just our DSPs, or our direct care workforce, but it's also a potential increased load on our service coordinators and other staff. Okay, because it's going to be a cut. And what will happen if your service coordinator's caseload goes up and they won't have enough time to really dedicate to your person or you as much as they have in the past? I know the service coordinator for my son, we love her. She's fantastic. She advocates for our son. I can only imagine if she had, n number more people that she had to be a service coordinator for. I don't know if we would get that similar advocacy that she provides us. All right, so think about those things when it comes to the Medicaid rates cut, and think about your specific situation and what things might happen to you. Now, the waitlist funding I talked about, that was the 278 people anticipated to enter these HCBS waivers, right? In-home supports, developmental disabilities, and acquired brain disorders in the coming biennium. And this APN request guarantees that these anticipated service plans will have a budget. The current House budget eliminates that waitlist funding, and it adds a request to provision to add a request for provisioning. Sorry, adds a provision to request funding for more money, but there's no guarantee that the money will be available, and there's no guarantee that the fiscal committee will honor that request. Okay, so we're in a problem situation here, right, where the funding has been cut for people anticipated to enter the system, and there may not be money available for their service plans. Okay, so think about this as an impact on you. Do you have somebody currently in high school looking to exit high school, graduate high school? And are they anticipating coming onto the DD waiver? If that's the case, what's going to happen if there's no funding available? Uh, who's going to provide the care for the individual now that they're no longer in school, no longer getting in-home supports? What will happen if no care is available for them? And if you're the person that's going to have to provide the care, are you going to have to quit your full-time job to do so? Okay, so think about that. If you're in this situation, this is a very, very, I think, a scary thing. I don't want to be a fear monger, all right? I don't want to be accused of that. But the reality is you may not be able to have funding for a service plan, and it could impact you negatively. Okay, now let's talk about this room and board request. Okay, so this was an additional prioritized need, or APN request. And what I view it as is something that helps provide housing stability. In our space, federal Medicaid dollars can't be used to cover room and board expenses. And so this APN request is to offset costs for residential housing providers. So we have some support for our housing providers, but there's not enough allocated to cover a gap between what it costs them to provide housing and the money that they're getting in. And so without this additional support, we risk provider agencies needing to close their residential programs. We risk them not even opening new programs or adding new seats. Okay, so this is a very, very scary housing situation. And so I want you to think about these things. Okay, if you are in residential housing now, or your loved one's in residential housing, how does it help you? What does it get you? Okay, I mean, the answer is, I think, a lot, but you got to think about how it really impacts you. And now imagine it was gone. Okay, and what happens if these provider agencies close their residential programs? Okay, who's going to provide the support? Where is the person going to go? Okay, are they going to go to a home that's overly restrictive? Are they going to have to do an extended hospital stay? Are they going to be homeless? And what happens also if providers agencies just stop opening new seats and new beds? Okay, we're going to have an increased housing shortage with results similar to the above. Okay, early supports and services. I talk about this one because in my view is that early supports and services has one of the best returns on investment in our space. You get services early on in your life that reduce the intensity of needs later in life. And I want to start with this by saying that the efficiency request for the agency has been honored. Okay, so what the agency asked for, they're getting. It has not been cut from the budget from the governor or from the House, but the agency asked for an additional $2 million for the biennium to help meet growing demand. So when you think about early supports, if this is a space that you're in, how has it helped you or your family member? And you could even be somebody in adulthood right now and have gone through ESS earlier. You can still answer this question: how did it help you? Did it help you learn about your child's disability? Did it help you do carryover for treatment strategies? Has it reduced the intensity of needs later on? And what would happen if these services were reduced or no longer available? So just want you to think about those. Then there's some other questions you can ask. Okay, so what if the budget for family support services were reduced? Okay, how do you depend upon family supports? What if that budget was reduced? How might it impact you? What if there was no money available to fund increased needs? Okay, so if people have increased behavior needs or some medical support needs, what if there's no money available for that? And recreational funding is something that has come up. That recreational funding helps our people get into the community and be participants in the community. What if recreational funding was no longer available to participate in community activities? Okay, so these are questions for you. I can't answer them for you. You have to think about your situation and come up with the answers. And this is the beginning of you developing your story. You're developing the impact on you. So now, to give you an idea, I wrote a little sample story for the New Hampshire Senate. Okay, and this sample story is fictional. There's nothing real in here, but it is maybe a typical story for a number of people. So we start off with the ask. Okay, so this is a written testimony we're going to give to the Chairman Gray and members of the Senate Finance Committee. Okay, and we're going to say who we are. All right, so my name is John Smith. I live in Anytown, New Hampshire with my wife, Julia. Our 26-year-old, and I have to try to, there we go. Our 26-year-old son, John Jr., lives in residential housing because we are no longer able to physically provide care for him. Okay, so this sets the context and who you are. Now you say, okay, just jump right in with the ask. I want you to fully fund Governor Ayotte's proposed state budget for fiscal years 2026 and 2027 and fund BDS's prioritized needs list. This includes eliminating both the 3% Medicaid rates cut and the $62.8 million defunding of the developmental disabilities wait list as proposed in the New Hampshire state budget or House budget. And furthermore, here's an additional ask. BDS's $10 million room and board APM request will help stabilize residential housing for people such as my son. Okay, so you've immediately made this, introduced who you are, what your ask is, and you've started making it personal, right? I want to stabilize residential housing for people such as my son. Now, hold on a second. Okay, now, the next thing is, what is good about your life? How is the current budget helping you? Okay, so our son, John Jr., has been receiving services since he was 18 months old. He started with early supports and services, then in-home supports, and finally to the developmental disability waiver where he is today. We're convinced that the services John Jr. received early in life had multiple benefits. Okay, reduced need for intense services, maximizes independence and ability to live a full and inclusive life. And then furthermore, the continued supports not only help the community learn about people like John, but they have become both his friends and his support network. Okay, so this is talking about, how has this system helped, right? It's helped John Jr., it's helped the community grow. It's the good thing that we want to keep. And then there are more context, just give the people, if they're still reading, an idea of what his day is like. Okay, so he volunteers in the community, delivering meals through Meals on Wheels. He restocks maps at the local conservation center. He knows he is doing important work and values himself because he is helping others. And then the work he is doing with his direct service professional. So we bring it back to how is this system helping us? We see him increasing his independence. Here's examples. He washes his clothes, prepares his meals, plans his shopping list. And these all help reduce his support needs, and they may allow his service plan to be reduced as he gains more independence. Okay, so this is, again, wow, life is good, right? We really like where we are right today. So now that we've set the things as being very good, what do we care about, right? Let's throw a little concern in here. John's in residential housing. We made this choice because my wife and I are no longer physically able to provide care for John Jr., and he has no siblings to live with. Okay, this sets up a real context, a real problem. Now, quickly, what's the concern? Well, we're alarmed by the budget proposed by the House. Without the small room and board APN, what will happen if his residential provider can no longer afford to house him? He has no place to go. What will happen if the 3% Medicaid rates cut forces John Jr.'s DSP to seek employment elsewhere? There is nobody else available to provide care. Okay, so you've set up the good part of where we are, and we're saying, look what the House budget may do to us, right? This is the immediate impact on us. So then you can close out. You just repeat the ask. Hey, Chairman Gray, thanks for the opportunity. Please fully fund Governor Ayotte's budget and the BDS prioritized needs list. And, I usually try to put a little guilt in there. Your choices are going to determine the future of John Jr. and others like him. So that's an example thing that you may do in terms of your story. And your story and your context is going to be completely different because it's going to be based upon your own personal experience. It might be based upon early supports and services. It may be based upon, this was focused on housing. It may be say, hey, I have somebody currently in high school and he is going to graduate during the biennium and we want budget for him. So you just need to think about really the questions I asked previously and help really work on your story. Okay, so then after you do this, then you can start refining your story. Pictures really help. People see pictures and they immediately get sucked into the testimony. And the other thing is to start working on a 2 to 3 minute spoken form of your testimony. Okay, so you might need to strip out some detail because when you get in front of the finance committee and you start talking, when the 3-minute buzzer goes off, you're going to be stopped. And so your goal here is to practice, 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 get it down to 2 minutes, get it down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and just hit the meat, right? Hit the concern. Okay, I'm concerned that residential care may be taken away, or our residential providers may go out of business because we don't have this funding, and my son has no place to go. Okay, that would be a very, very short thing that you can do, but that gets to the meat of the problem. Okay, then what we do is we ask you to start sharing your story, and sharing your story. So there's many ways you can do this. Okay, and I put QR codes up here. I don't know, Caitlin, are we going to make the slide deck available afterwards?
We can, yeah,
we
can for sure.
Okay. So this QR code, if you scan it with your phone, CISNY is the Community Support Network Incorporated. They are the people that help bring all the area agencies in the state together. They have a Survey Monkey thing that you can go into and submit your story, and it's done anonymously. Okay, so if you don't feel comfortable about sharing your story publicly, but you want to make sure your story gets out there, this way of doing it with CISNY is a very good way of doing it. The next thing is, this is hot off the presses. This is fresh about an hour or two ago. Able New Hampshire has a tool that allows you to submit to the entire finance committee. Okay, so if you go here, Able and H, we worked with them to get this portal in place where you can submit testimony directly to the New Hampshire Senate Finance Committee. Or you can send it directly to your senator. Okay, so if you go to our state Gen Court site, you can contact your senator. You can find out who your senator is, and then you can email them directly. Or you can call them. There'll be often a phone call or phone number listed there, and call them. And that's where, if you've developed and worked on your 2 to 3 minute speech, you can tailor that to talking to your senator directly. Or, and you can do any one of these or all of them if you wish. You can send something directly to the New Hampshire State Senate Finance Committee. Okay, this QR code brings you right to the spot where the Finance Committee is. What you would do is you go to Gen Court, and I don't know if you can see my pointer, but there's a standing committees circled in red on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, you see the Finance Committee outlined in red. And then there's this tiny little email the entire committee. You can click on that, and it will bring up your email application, and then you can send your testimony to the entire committee. The thing that you need to be aware of is these things are not then private. Okay, so I'm perfectly willing to share my information, but other people are not. And if you are not willing to share information in your name, I would go back and consider using the CISNY tool. Okay, because the rest of these things, whatever information you provide, somebody else may be able to read it. Okay, now finally, this is the last slide, and then we can open it up for questions. The Senate Finance Committee budget hearing is the next step. This is a public hearing where people come in, and the entire public comes in and they give their testimony. And this, when I say the entire public, I mean everybody. This means firemen, it means educators, it means anybody that has a concern or wants to advocate for a budget for their space. They're going to be there. We're part of that. The meeting starts at, or the hearing starts at 1 p.m. We can, if you want to attend, please let me know, and we can talk you through some of the process of getting in. But even if you don't want to speak, consider showing up to show strength in numbers. And I don't know if you can see my video. I'm putting on a hot pink scarf right now, and we want people to wear hot pink because it represents the disability community. At the housing hearing a few weeks ago, the housing budget hearing a few weeks ago, hot pink represented about 1/3 of the entire audience there. We had a very, very strong showing, and we need just as strong showing, if not more, on May 6th. If you plan to speak, say again, prepare a 2 to 3 minute spoken form and practice. The other thing is be prepared to wait. As I say, the entire public is invited to this meeting, everybody, not just people with disabilities. And there can be hundreds of people that want to speak. And if you do the math, let's just say 100 people takes 3 minutes each, that's 300 minutes, that's 5 hours. And the way the hearing is going to work is starts at 1, and I think it goes till 5:30 or 6. And if there's still people waiting to talk, they're going to take a quick break for dinner and then pick back up until everybody's done. Okay, so just be prepared. It's going to be a long day. Bring fluids, bring food. You cannot eat in the representatives hall, but you can step out. And if you want to go, and if you need transportation, please let me and Amber know. We don't have a great plan yet. We're going to base it upon the number of people that are going to let us know that they're going to attend. That's it. So now we can open it for questions.
All these emails and letters need to be sent in the next few days to meet that May 6th date.
Yes, they will. So you have until the state process is that you have till midnight the day of the public hearing. It's better to do it before then. And if you imagine everybody waited to the last minute and there's thousands of emails that come in, who's going to read all those, right? But if they trickle in over time, there's more likelihood that you're going to have your email read. That answer your question, Bob?
It does, yeah.
Okay, all right. Kelly Earhart has raised her hand.
Well, when will you get back to me? I said, I want to go and I need a ride. And I live in Nashua.
Yes. We will get to you, Kelly. As I say, we want to see the overall response of the number of people that want to come up from Nashua. If it's a large amount, we'll have to plan differently than if it's a smaller amount.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to raise my hand. I'm using a very old cell phone.
Okay.
My name is Catherine Connor Steele, and I represent Connor Steele, and he's an individual who's eligible under your program. My son. I'm alarmed by this. Truly, truly alarmed. But we've had a 35-year journey, Connor and I. And I don't know. I can't go to speak because I just started a new job. I have no available time off, but I will be writing with Connor's permission to his comfort level everywhere. My takeaway is this population hits all the tick marks of the most at-risk population in the whole entire New Hampshire budgetary demographic. They tick every box of fire, police, ambulance, public safety, medical, support services, everything, housing, you name it. Because they run the gamut, and it's surprising and alarming that they aren't prioritized right now in this budgetary mess.
So, Catherine, I agree with you. I think the House budget was a bad attempt at trying to come up with a balanced budget. Like I say, even the Finance Committee chair for the Division 3 Finance that heads our space admits that it was a bad space. So what we need to do, and the charge for this presentation here is, okay, we see we're alarmed, right? But we have to then take action. Right? And the action that we have to take is start writing testimony and contacting our senators. And that's the best thing we can do.
And I intend to do that with gusto on every level.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. We'll go to Ben. Ben in New Hampshire.
Yeah, thank you, Will, and everyone who's worked on this. That was a great presentation and so full. I had a comment and a question, and I know some people may. I know for me, when I'm you talked about adding the guilt trip at the end. For me, I also want to be add in something about that I'm sensitive, that there's genuine issues going on the revenue side, you know, um, and we don't need to get into it, but I mean the dividend and interest taxes, all the interest on the ARPA money is going away, and we're probably going into a recession. So that doesn't mean, you know, yes, you have to do some things, but don't solve these problems on the backs of the most vulnerable. And then the question that I had, it was kind of incidentally in there that the wait list is has a calculated number of 62.8. I think I saw a million. Is that right? I hadn't seen a figure for that before.
Yeah, my understanding that was the waitlist numbers that we've seen. I've done a ton of spreadsheets, and if I put $62.8 million, I probably checked it 3 or 4 times. So
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that, just a little bit of clarity? And Will has done a lot of analysis of the numbers, but what it was the state predicted based on numbers that the area agency submits for the next fiscal year, and they came up with a little bit over 17 million, but a lot of those individuals need to be annualized in the following year. What happens is that a lot of individuals come off the waiting list and they have a staggered start. And so when the state looked at what the proposed numbers of current people in that fiscal year, and then their annualized number the following year, and then the new people coming in the second year of the biennium, they're the ones that came up with that number. So it was the Department of Health and Human Services made that recommendation to the governor's office.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Is anybody, I know Kelly Earhart is, planning on attending the hearing? Maybe you could use the raise the hand or the reaction. I see Ben. All right. So any other questions? I know I went through the slides pretty quickly. I wanted to give a lot of opportunity for questions at the end.
Hey, this is Tom Gall.
Hi, Tom.
Can you hear me? I think I unmuted
Yes.
myself. Good. Hey, when was the last time there was a Medicaid cut? Do we know that? I know they have looking at 3% now, but I don't know whether that fluctuates or they're trying.
Sandy, you would know better than I would.
Tom, that's a difficult question. We've gone 10 years without a rate increase at one point in my journey here at Gateways. So 10 years without what happens in New Hampshire is there's no cost of living increases that come forward on our system. So every once in a while there's a rate increase. The last rate increase was during the pandemic era. We got some additional funds, and there was acknowledgement that we needed some rate increase over, maybe it was about 2 years ago. Well, no, maybe a year ago now. They gave us some additional resources. It was over a year ago, but we had gone many years without anything. And
I remember that. Yeah.
so I don't know that they would call it a cut. It's just that we got no cost of living for 10 years. And then all of a sudden there was some resources coming our way. We have also had a waiting list. We had a massive waiting list in 2008 and 2009.
Okay. Thank you.
See, Amber has her hand raised.
Thanks. Well, I just wanted to let folks know that Will and I are here to help you through any process and meet you where you are when it comes to submitting testimony, to getting involved. Your testimony is incredibly invaluable to us and to our senators, but if you choose to just attend and not speak at the hearing, that is just as valued to us. Again, wearing that pink is very important at the State House, again, to show solidarity for our space. But Will and I, even after this conversation, should have our contact information. We're happy to talk over ideas, to help you edit testimony. Again, if you're having difficulties looking up your senators, we're happy to help provide that information for you.
Well said, Amber. Ben, did you have more?
Yeah, I did. I had a question about, I think you said you encouraged us to include pictures, and I'm just wondering if you know, or if anyone on the call knows, if in the like the where you can submit testimony, if you can include pictures in that, through that mode.
So yeah, so there's the ability to submit testimony online, remote check into a bill. And I think that's very useful for bills where there are specific policy changes. Let's say the blue envelope law for people with autism. You can submit text that way, and you can sign in favor or opposing or neutral on a bill. The budget's different, right? The budget is, how do you sign in favor of or in hate of, or opposition to? I would think that everybody signing in on the budget would be opposed to it for one reason or another. So the most effective thing would be to send email directly to the committee using those send email forms. And in those, it's an email, so you can attach a file, you can attach a photo.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Will.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Sandy, do you have any closing remarks you want to make?
I apologize, but I submitted a couple of questions in text message.
Oh,
Do
you
see
did?
them?
I've been busy. There we go.
Will,
I
I'm
see
getting
some
them
of
up right
them.
now. Can you see
All
them?
right, thank you. I can see now.
Okay.
Okay, so who can I talk to about how proposed cuts will affect seniors waiting for nursing care placement?
Sabrina, it's
So
the
are we
same
talking-
group of people. It is these legislators. We're also, even though we didn't highlight it tonight, we also do Choices for Independence and provide some elder services in New Hampshire. And we've been tracking this as well. The Choices for Independence waiver also got a 3% rate reduction in the proposed budgets. So again, all of that is relative to the same legislators.
And Sabrina, I see another was more of a comment. You plan on attending, and you're concerned that it's going to set a precedent for future cuts. So thank you. All right.
Thank you both.
Kath, thank you for attending. All right. Is it true that New Hampshire has the lowest Medicaid per case rates currently in New England?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have an answer to that, Catherine.
I don't either. Will, that used to be that was the data a number of years ago. I don't know that anyone has been. I am not sure if CS&I has that data. I do recall there was a point in time that we could use that information and say that the state of New Hampshire had the lowest average cost of Medicaid per person served in New England, but we would have to see if the department has that or CS&I has that, Will.
Okay. And then a few of you have asked for the slides after the meeting, and yes, we'll send out a PDF form. Caitlin has them now, and she'll send them out. All right.
One last question, if you don't mind. The hearing starts at 1:00. Can you tell me what time you recommend we arrive so that we're able to get parking, get into the building, all that jazz?
Yep. So, do you want to answer that, Amber?
I was going to jump on that one. So, based off of last time when we were doing the house, they actually only let us into Reps Hall about 30 minutes beforehand. We had individuals, I found it ample amount of time, about a half an hour before, to find parking and to be able to, use the restroom before and get situated in Reps Hall. There's going to be a line when you walk in to either oppose, neutral, support the bill, where you would sign up if you plan on testifying. But I think an allotment of at least 30 minutes is a good number for this one. And I think again, the biggest thing is, even though you give yourself the 30 minutes to sign in and get situated, it's along, as Will has mentioned, everybody that has a concern about the budget from every single agency and every hot button topic that is being proposed right now will be there. And so that allows you, again, to get some space. What we usually try to do is you'll see the parade of pink. And so feel free to sit with any of us from other agencies, other supporters. That's usually about a good time to do that.
And let me ask this. We've done this in the past. I didn't do it for this presentation, but we can do a kind of a how-to guide, how to get to the State House, where to park, where to go when you want to go to Reps Hall, or what is Reps Hall. And then when you walk through the door, there's going to be these pink cards. If you want to speak, go fill out a pink card. So we can give you step-by-step instructions. Would that be helpful to a number of you?
Be everybody your house. This is Kelly again. I'll be with you.
Okay, all
I
right.
haven't been to Reps Hall since 2019. I'm sure it looks a little different now. I testified about the dental.
All right, very good. All right, so we will work on a how-to guide. Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my dog. I'm sorry. I'm going to let him out.
Oh, okay.
He's a too, but
All right, here's a question from Mary. I submitted a letter to my state senator. How do we know they got it? I did it by email. Typically, a state senator is going to, either they will respond or their staff will respond to say they got it. Okay, if they don't, you can always try to give them a phone call. Say, hey, I sent you an email. All right, just you can be assertive without being too aggressive. It sounds like we're winding down on questions. Amber, anything else you want to add?
I think I'm good.
All right, let me check the thing. And then, yes, a copy of my slides or our slides, we'll make them available. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Caitlin, you want to bring us home?
We did get one other question asking if you have to stay for the entire hearing.
Oh, the answer is no.
No, you do not need to stay for the entire hearing. As we ran in with the House, just because you arrive first and submit your name to do testimony does not mean you're going to go first. It actually kind of flipped where the first people ended up going last. So we had some individuals that could only stay for a few hours and weren't able to testify. We don't necessarily have a say in the order that you're selected to present.
There is the ability to make a special request, but it has to be a very, very special request. I think at the House hearing, there were some police giving testimony. They had to get back out and do their policing, right? So they couldn't wait. They were in charge of safety for us. Some people were coming from the North Country and had very severe physical disabilities, and they were unable to attend and stay in the Reps Hall for a very long period of time. And an exception was able to be made for them. But those are very rare, and I wouldn't expect it to be available to everybody, because if it was available to everybody, then everybody'd be going first. So, all right, anything else? Caitlin, or you want to finish this up?
Thank you all for attending. This was really great. Will and Amber, thank you so much for putting this together and putting all that hard work in and doing all the advocacy for families at Gateways. Will and Amber will be sending out their contact information. I know they'll be happy to answer any questions or help guide this process even more. On behalf of the Family Support Council, thank you again for attending and advocating for your loved ones.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
See you next week.